Title: My coworker tried to sabotage my promotion. I just let her walk into her own trap. I, 28 male, work in business development for a mid-sized logistics company. We're not flashy like Amazon or FedEx, but in our niche, we're well respected. Think moving multi-million-dollar shipments across continents without a hitch. It's complicated work. You can't fake competence for long here. I'd been with the company for nearly 5 years, starting as an analyst, grinding my way up to account lead. My whole thing is do the work, do it right, and don't get sucked into the endless cycle of office gossip. My reputation is one of the few things I truly value because in this industry, one big mistake or scandal can follow you for years. Enter Michelle, fake name, 34 female. She joined about 2 years ago, and from day one, she was a lot. She's mastered the art of sounding important without saying anything. She's the type who thrives in meetings but disappears when actual deliverables are due. You've probably worked with a Michelle. She's got the always busy, never productive vibe down to a science. For the first year, we were cordial. I didn't give a reason to dislike me, and she didn't have a reason to target me. But about 6 months ago, something changed. I was quietly being considered for a promotion to senior strategist. It wasn't a done deal, but I knew I had a good shot. I kept it low-key, only telling my manager and my mentor. Somehow, Michelle found out. I suspect she saw an email invitation to a leadership meeting pop up on my screen. From that moment, her tone toward me shifted. At first, it was subtle. She'd ask questions in meetings that sounded innocent, but were clearly designed to plant seeds of doubt. Oh, are we sure those numbers are up to date? Or, that timeline seems aggressive. Is that realistic? She always made sure to glance around the table when she said it, like she wanted everyone else to also question me. Then came the passive-aggressive email CCing. She'd loop in our manager on things that didn't need oversight, framing it like she was being helpful, but in reality, she was creating a paper trail that made me look like I needed supervision. Next came the credit stealing. She once claimed in a meeting that we'd brainstormed a client pitch together. In reality, I'd built the entire thing alone, and she'd barely glanced at the deck before the meeting. I had the email trail to prove it, but calling her out every single time would make me look petty, so I bit my tongue. But the tipping point came during a big client pitch we co-led. I'd prep you everything: slide deck, data models, competitive pricing breakdown, and even gave Michelle a small section to present so she could feel involved. Halfway through, she veered wildly off script and told the client, "We'll need to double-check some of these figures because I think there might be inconsistencies." She implied I had made mistakes in my own work. The client looked uneasy, my manager looked annoyed, and I had to spend the next day doing damage control via a long follow-up email and multiple phone calls. Michelle later apologized, claiming she was just being thorough. That's when I started my Michelle Shenanigans file. Screenshots, emails, meeting notes, timestamps, everything. I didn't know how or when, but I had a feeling her mouth would eventually write a check she couldn't cash. Update 1. The wrong move. 3 weeks later, the check bounced. It was a Tuesday morning. I just sat down at my desk with my first coffee when I got a meeting invite from my manager, marked urgent. Michelle was on the invite, along with HR, no subject line, no explanation. I walk in and Michelle's already seated. She's wearing this smug little half smile like she's the star witness in a courtroom drama. HR is there, laptop open, ready to type. The HR rep starts. "Michelle, you've made some serious allegations about OP falsifying company data. We're here to discuss those claims with all parties present." I glance at Michelle. She's sitting a little too straight, hands folded in her lap like she's rehearsed this. She launches into this whole performance about how she's concerned that I've been inflating client satisfaction scores and conversion rates in order to position myself more favorably for the promotion. Her voice is syrupy sweet, but her eyes are daring me to deny it. Here's the thing. All our performance reports are stored on a secure server. Every single change is logged with a timestamp and the user's name. HR had already run the audit before this meeting. The HR rep pulls up a folder on their laptop. OP's reports were found to be accurate. However, we discovered multiple instances of data being altered in shared quarterly summaries, and those changes were traced back to Michelle's login. The smugness evaporates from Michelle's face. She starts stammering about how she was just cleaning up formatting and didn't realize the numbers had shifted. Right, because formatting changes usually involve lowering my client's scores by 6% and raising hers by 5%. That's when I leaned forward and said, if it's helpful, I've kept detailed documentation of every time Michelle has misrepresented my work or claimed credit for something I did. I can forward those to HR right now. The HR rep actually smiled, which in HR speak is the equivalent of fireworks and champagne. Then my mentor, who had been quietly listening, slid a printed packet across the table. I've been monitoring this situation as well. Here's my own record of incidents. Michelle went pale. She knew she was cooked. The meeting ended with HR informing Michelle that she was being placed on a performance improvement plan. That's corporate code for, we're lining up the paperwork to fire you. The best part? I got the promotion later that week. My manager apologized for not stepping in sooner and told me, you handled this with more patience than I would have. Update 2. 2 weeks after the HR showdown, I was settling into my new role as senior strategist. My days looked different, more high-level calls, more client strategy meetings, and far fewer, why is Michelle saying this? Emails in my inbox. Honestly, the quiet was weird at first. I'd gotten so used to bracing for her next little jab that I almost missed the adrenaline. Almost. Then one Tuesday morning, I'm going through my emails when I see a LinkedIn notification. You have a new message. It's from a recruiter I don't know. His profile says he's been in the logistics industry for 15 years and has worked at a few major competitors. His message reads, "Hey, I think I worked with your colleague Michelle a few years back at Eastport Global. Just curious, is she still doing that thing where she takes credit for other people's work and blames junior staff when she's called out?" I just stared at the message for a second, my coffee halfway to my mouth. This guy had nailed her in one sentence. I replied carefully. I'd recommend contacting our HR department directly for any professional concerns. Within minutes, he writes back, "Yeah, thought so. We've been warning companies about her for a while now. She's been burning bridges in this industry for years." That little exchange was the spark. Over the next few days, I got 3 more random messages. One from a former coworker of hers in another state, one from a hiring manager I'd met briefly at a trade expo, and one from someone who'd been an intern at her old job. All 3 had different stories, but the same theme. Michelle had a long track record of riding other people's success until it suited her, then sabotaging them to get ahead. One person told me she'd even gotten a promising account manager fired by accidentally forwarding a private Slack conversation to the CEO, but conveniently left out the context that made it clear she'd baited him into venting in the first place. Another said Michelle used to keep a notebook of other people's ideas, then bring them up in meetings as her own, tweaking them just enough to claim she'd been working on this concept for a while. It was like seeing the pattern from above for the first time. In our office, she was just a problem, but out in the industry, she was a walking cautionary tale. And here's where karma did the heavy lifting. Because word gets around fast in our field, logistics isn't as big as people think, especially at the corporate level. People bounce between companies, go to the same expos, join the same LinkedIn groups. If you burn enough bridges, eventually there's nowhere left to cross. One afternoon, my mentor poked her head into my office and said, "Hey, you might want to check Michelle's LinkedIn. Looks like she's making moves." I pull it up. Sure enough, our company is gone from her profile. Under experience, she's listed herself as Independent Consultant, Strategic Operations and Growth. Translation, nobody's hiring me, so I'm going to make it sound like this was my choice. Her connections count had dropped by about 200. That's not normal unless you're either doing a major purge or people are quietly distancing themselves from you. The funniest part, she'd started posting these vague motivational quotes about staying strong when people misunderstand you and knowing your worth even when others can't see it. The kind of stuff that's clearly about someone but pretends to be universal wisdom. 2 weeks later, I heard from a friend in our industry's LinkedIn group that Michelle had applied for a position at a competing firm. They were excited about her on paper, until they made a few calls. Apparently, the recruiter I messaged wasn't the only one warning people. At least 3 references either refused to comment or flat out said, "You don't want her in your office." The company pulled the offer before it even got to the formal interview stage. By the end of the month, Michelle was still consulting, but her posts had gone from smugly inspirational to strangely defensive. One of them literally said, "Sometimes the people who are most threatened by you are the ones you thought were on your side." Yeah, sure, Michelle. Totally about me. The final cherry on top came during an industry networking night I attended with my mentor. The event was packed with mid-level and senior folks from all over the region. Guess who was there, lingering near the wine table? Yep, Michelle. I saw her clock me from across the room. She gave me this tight smile and walked over like nothing had happened. "Hey, stranger, how's the new role treating you?" She asked like we were catching up after vacation instead of surviving a corporate knife fight. I just smiled back and said, "Busy, lots of projects, you know how it is." We made small talk for maybe 2 minutes, and during that time 3 different people came up to greet me, all of whom completely ignored her standing right there. She laughed a little too loudly at nothing, muttered something about circulating, and disappeared into the crowd. I didn't see her again that night. By the time I left the event, I realized something. I didn't need to get the last word. I didn't need to post a victory lap on LinkedIn or tell everyone my side. Michelle's reputation was already doing all the talking for me. In our world, once your name becomes shorthand for can't be trusted, you're done. And she'd written that story for herself long before she ever set her sights on me.